Thank you and welcome to the third panel of the CIO100 Symposium. My name is Keith Andere and I'm going to be your moderator. I hope that we can have a very inclusive conversation with my panelists on this very important topic on strategies and for CIOs and solution providers. What are the lessons from the pandemic? With me, I'm going to be joined by amazing panelists, four of them. Wambui Mbesa from CIO100, Robert Karoki from CIO Chai Circle, Peter Kanda from Gertrude Hospital as the CIO, and Imran, Country Manager from Fortinet. Thank you so much. Within this session, we are going to look at some of the guiding conversations that these amazing panelists are going to break it down and, share some of the experiences, share some of the challenges, and share some of the strategies going forward. And just to, break out this session, the value-driven innovation has been very critical and more as enterprises wrestle in changing and challenging patterns as a result of COVID-19. How have CIOs adjusted to the battle ready during this global crisis of COVID-19? How have they co-worked with solution providers? With nearly 100% of staff working from home, as is the norm now, how are CIOs co-working with solution providers to build resistance and resilience towards the impact of COVID-19 pandemic? To what extent has there been demand for digital services? What are the gaps? And what is the way forward for enterprises? So very quickly, I'll just allow my panelists to introduce themselves. I'll start with the ladies first. So the lady in the room, Wambui from Intersoft, please, you have a minute or less to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Keith. My name is Wambui Mbesa. I am the CEO of Intersoft International East Africa. We are an IT solutions and services company, giving solutions to various niche sectors, banking and financial services sector, as well as public sector, where we give solutions for, revenue management, health insurance, and I'm really glad to be here today.
Thank you very much, Wambui, and we're looking forward to looking at your perspectives. Next, we have Robert, the CIO from Chai Circle. Robert, if you were to tweet your introduction, how would you do it in 160 characters?
Thank you, Keith. My name is Robert Karaoke, CIO Chai Circle. Chai Circle is working with farmers in the tea sector and anybody who is affiliated to the tea sector, from the brokers to the KTDA employees, and of course, because of the common bond, we also deal with business people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Short, sweet, and precise. Peter, the CIO from Gertrude's Hospital.
My name is Peter Kanda. I'm the CIO for Gertrude Children's Hospital. Gertrude Children's Hospital is the largest pediatric children's hospital in Eastern Africa. We've been in existence for the last 75 years, and we have 16 sites spread across the country. That's Nairobi and Mombasa. We're also the largest children's hospital in Africa in terms of numbers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we have Imran.
Thank you, Keith, for moderating our session today. To the panelists, pleasure to be on board with you here today. So my name is Imran Chaudhry. I'm responsible for the Fortinet business in East Africa. And we are one of the leading security brands in the market today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my panelists and members and audience. We look forward to also your contribution to this panel. Follow us on Twitter, on CIO East Africa, and engage with us and share your perspective and bring in your comments, because we'll be opening up this session for your interactions and to give comments from you. So we'll want to just get some reflections from our panelists again in the order through which we have introduced ourselves. We'll give ourselves about 5 minutes or 3 minutes each if you can, so that we can have another round later to just give us your perspective Since COVID-19, what has been your experience? Have there been demand for digital services for you? How have you done to cope it? What has been the challenge? But most importantly, what is the way forward? What strategies can you recommend to other CIOs who are watching us? Please, let's start with Wambui. You have the floor and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Keith. We as a company are a solution, provider, and the context that we find ourselves in right now is that the world in the last few years, not just because of the pandemic, but in the last few years, have been in this state we call the VUCA state. The VUCA state, which means volatile for V, uncertain for U, complex for the C, and ambiguous for the A. So VUCA state, and all this is being driven by disruption. So as much as COVID-19 was not anticipated and caught the global economy, sort of unawares, this digital transformation has been happening, throughout the last few years. I mean, actually not few years, probably 10 years and more. And so you find technological trends such as cloud and social and mobile and now the digital transformation of the digital economy were not new. So the problem with the CIOs, or let me say even the service providers and the organizations, is that they were dragging their feet and were not decisively, had not decisively resolved to move fast and adopt, and get into the digital transformation bandwagon. So what the pandemic then did was to accelerate this digital transformation. It was already happening. And the pandemic then was a tipping point that augmented the urgency for the adoption of these trends. So the lessons that we have learned as a service provider and working with the CEOs in the market is that innovation is the one thing that we must always, put at the top. If there's one thing we have to do is just be innovative. So because innovation is about two things. It's about agility and it's about adoption. If you don't, if you're not agile, nimble, if you don't adopt, then you're going to be left out. You're not going to make it. So this is a key thing that I got out from we got out as a lesson from this pandemic. But the other thing, the mindset shift. Revolutionary, collaborative mindset is very, very important in this post-pandemic era, and even as you go with the digital transformation. In the past, if you remember the past, I'm just meaning, before the pandemic, just a few months ago, if you wanted to start a project, what would the customer tell you? I need the team here on site. They must be here on site. I have to see them. And if you had to do demos, for example, they would insist you'll lose points in the demo if you're not on site. I'm sure my friends from the SACO and the hospital, have been here. So, but what happened today? We know that you can kick off a project without physical team being on site. You can actually take a project live without the the physical team being on site. So a lot of things have changed. The other thing is actually you find that the pandemic accelerated because of the lockdowns and the social distancing. CIOs understanding that now collaboration and getting the collaboration tools are very important. So, the Zoom and the Teams and Slack and so on. Because it's not just about customers being served better, because of course their culture, their customer journey has changed as a result of the pandemic. There is need for boards to continue meeting so that they can, guide the organization. There is need for employees and teams to continue to collaborate. So
Absolutely.
again,
I'll come back to you on that thought, yeah, just so you can finish on it.
Yes.
But I think you're bringing out very important perspectives, the perspective of what we are calling now the COVID accelerated digital transformation, COVID. And this is very important, that COVID has provided us with an opportunity to accelerate those transformations that we've been seeing in the last decade, that preparation that we have been working on. And I think right now we want to take perspective from our next panelist, Robert, the CIO from CIOs, and give us, some of these perspectives, just probably speaking about some of the processes that have been happening within that sector and broadly as a CIO. Please, you have the floor, and let's try and keep it within 3 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. And once again, I want to talk on behalf of a lot of colleagues, sector, I think CIOs in general.
Robert, we can't quite hear you. Can you speak louder a bit?
And now?
Much better, thanks.
Okay, I'm saying I wish to speak on behalf of all the CIOs and specifically the SACO. I wish COVID had given all of us a date, like during this time I'll come. Because then people could have prepared. But on my behalf as the CIO CIOs, what happened is a process that had started a while ago, from the infrastructure all the way to the systems that when COVID hit, we had to fall back to them. I'll start by all our staff, almost all of them have laptops, which provides, for example, the portability in terms of to work from home. So by the time COVID hit, it's not the time we went to look for laptops for our staff to operate from. Then I remember we had already done an infrastructure whereby all our services are centrally located. So branches and all the other offices we have countrywide connect to the central location. And on that central location, we have failovers in terms of if one server goes down, there is another server that picks. So, as you know, systems fail. That was able to come through for us. I'll say to the point of even having internet that is shared, telephony that you can be able to put on your laptop as a soft phone, that when members call, they don't differentiate that, oh, this guy is working from home, because you are able to receive your phone the normal way you do normally. I remember at some point I had implemented the use of Office 365, which comes with things like Teams. Initially, of course, there was resistance that, you are taking us to a system that is expensive, the licensing is not cheap. But when COVID hit, that is not the time I went to my board for approval to get the license, because we already had that service in operation. So I'm saying some of the things that helped CIOs or helped me as the CIO CIOs to go through the process without a lot of hitches was the infrastructure that we had already put in place before COVID. Now, how did COVID impact us? As much as the infrastructure was there, Keith, we ended up having to train our staff. For example, this is how you connect to the VPN from home. And once you connect, this is how you set up your phone. This is how you access the system. This is how you respond to those things. The more difficult part was the directors, because the directors are not part of the staff. So we had also to introduce them to the use of virtual environment like meetings. Directors meet on a regular basis. So initially we had to get them to connect from their phones. Where it was not possible, we invited providers to provide Wi-Fi in their homes, and that helped a lot in terms of providing those services without any downtime.
Thank you very much for, first of all, breaking and giving your perspectives and experiences and what it has been like for you in terms of tapping on the opportunities within infrastructural setup, so that you can tap on the digital opportunities within the circle itself. But you mentioned some of key great points, the ability to actually be prepared, in terms of having certain infrastructures. And this speaks to a lot of issues, the issue of last mile connectivity. Do we have infrastructure set up to the last mile to allow service provision, to the very last end? I think right now we would like to hear the perspective from Gertrude Hospital. What has been their experience? Has there been demand for digital enabled medical services, and how have they been able to cope up with all this social distancing and everybody trying to get medication from home? And it is my humble pleasure to introduce Peter to come and give us his perspective.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you for that. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for us as Gertrude Children's Hospital, we've always been in a digital transformation journey, because you always have to be at the forefront of adopting technology. And because of that, it created an enabling environment for us as an organization, and an environment that is secure, that is accessible, that is effective, that is also agile. I know we've worked with one of the panelists here, Imran, to deploy some of the solutions that have made it secure and accessible to our users in different places. We also provided collaboration tools within the hospital, and with these tools, people could connect from very many different places. But for us, we're in the business of providing healthcare. So our number one priority is our patients. And a lot of our patients were disrupted because of some of the things that were set up, e.g. when curfew was, when the curfew was announced, we had to find different models, because we realized that some of our patients could not be able to travel to see us, sometimes in the middle of the night. And using some of the tools that I've mentioned, we were able to come up with with models that were able to serve our customers. We've been able to have our doctors operate from the comfort of their homes and to see patients. We've been able to provide centers where the patients can be able to, e.g. our Mombasa clinic. So without the need of them traveling all the way to Nairobi to see a specialist, we're able to provide a center where they could be able to access services. We're also able to come up with models that were very effective with engaging third party. We work closely with the insurance companies. So we were able to move some of the insurance companies to become paperless. Probably I'll mention one or two, like Jubilee, they went paperless with us. And because of that, it was a seamless process, and we were able to continue giving services to our patients. I'll just make a note. Our telemedicine services has been able to see hundreds of patients during this time of COVID, and we try to make it as easily accessible as possible, and without disrupting how our patients access that. Thank you, Keith.
No, thank you so much, Peter, for sharing some of your perspectives and how you've been able to seamlessly transition, from physical enabled medical service provision to digital enabled service provision within the medical sector. And I'm very curious to also look at response from your users, in this case the patients, what has been the adoption level, but we'll come back to that. For now, I am interested to listen to the last but not least panelist today, Imran, to give us some perspective. I think he stands at a very unique pedestal today, given that he's not only a service provider, but he's a service provider at the center of our topic and conversations that all of you have talked about, the issue of security, the issue of enterprise security, the issue of VPN, the issue of just ensuring that data protection is also guaranteed, that privacy is also guaranteed. And I'd like to hear from him what has been experienced, what has been the demand for security services, even when we are talking about digital meetings and virtual meetings, and all this kind of conversation speaks to right what he does. I'd not want to preempt, but allow him to give us our perspective. Imran, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear all the perspectives from everyone on the panel today. So as Fortinet, we did not see a drop in cybercrime. As a matter of fact, during the pandemic, we've seen an increase in cyber threat and cyber actors out there. So this simply tells you that the pandemic has brought a permanent change in our lifestyle. And this is what cyber criminals are now taking advantage of. This permanent change in lifestyle is all about work from X, is what I like to call it. So X for me means work from anywhere. You can work from your vehicle, from your coffee shop, from the office, or from a standby location, or from your home. So cyber criminals now know that you can actually connect back to your business from any location that you have internet connectivity. Now, COVID and the new pandemic has led businesses to look at how they can adopt agility. And all of a sudden, this agility now is about new technologies, the cloud, adoption of artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, the introduction of Internet of Things, simply to ensure that the business does not drop down and start losing its business or its customers or its market share. However, with this new pandemic, we've seen CIOs looking at a number of new things. And the first thing that CIOs, CTOs, CISOs are looking at is due diligence. So they're all starting to focus on cybersecurity. Previously, cybersecurity was a second or a third discussion in most technology discussions with the C-level. But all of a sudden, during the pandemic window, cybersecurity now has become the top discussion with the C-level. So leaders and CIOs are now looking to move their businesses faster on the digital innovation journey. As my colleagues have rightly put it, many of us have already started that journey, but the pandemic has now just accelerated it a bit faster. And now everyone is looking at how they're going to be adopting new technologies to ensure that their transformation is quicker, faster, more efficient, and can withstand the next pandemic, version 20, for example. Leaders are now starting to look at their businesses in a different way. They're looking at the business as a technology business rather than a brick and mortar. So we're seeing a significant shift in thinking from the leadership, from the C-level, from the CISOs, from the CIO, the CTO. They're starting to look at the business as a technology center rather than a brick and mortar where customers walk in and transact with them. So when I sit at the C-level, I always tell them, during pandemic, many of your branches were shut down. Banks were shutting branches next to you. But surprisingly, none of us in Kenya raised a concern. Why are the banks closing the branches? And we were all busy living our lives, buying stuff. Glovo was delivering. Everything was running without a physical branch being in place for you to go and withdraw money. So digital innovation is here. Like my colleagues on the panel rightly put it, it took off a long time ago, accelerated by the pandemic, and it's also being driven largely by user devices. So users are now pushing organizations to adopt innovation or be left behind. So these users now have multiple devices. So I'm sure everyone on this panel has nothing less than 3 devices. Or the audience in this forum today, everyone carries a minimum of 3 devices, and all these 3 devices at any one time are constantly connecting back to the organization, receiving and sending data. Now, all of this is leading to a major cyber risk. The C-level business leaders are now looking at cybersecurity as a huge risk and as a showstopper to their innovation, and now are looking at how digital innovation and cybersecurity can walk hand in hand to ensure that businesses adopt the right strategy on innovation and can secure that innovation as they go forward. Now, at Fortinet, we've been working with a lot of leaders across East Africa of late around how can we ensure that their journey to this digital space, the cloud, the AI, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, all of that can be rolled out with a mouse click, but is secure end-to-end. So as one of the market leaders in cybersecurity, we run some very interesting C-level workshops that introduce security with innovation and allow business leaders to see where they're going to be in the next 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imran. I think that was such a powerful way of closing, that we need to change our mind shift, from security as a supporting aspect, but bring cybersecurity to the board level and to the C-suite level as a strategic direction through which we can achieve digital transformation by allowing cybersecurity and digital transformation and digital adoption to work hand in hand to achieve digital resilience and cybersecurity resilience that is needed during these interesting times of COVID-accelerated digital transformation, CALDIT as we call it. I want to come back to Wambui, and I know we are pressed of time. We have about 10 minutes to do, to allow her finish her thought, and as she completes her thought, I want us to wrap this together and have our closing remarks onto it. But within it, I would really like to bring out what are the next steps? What are the next strategies? What would you tell the CIOs within the audience room in terms of what to adopt? And if there are any SMEs and small entities that are looking to adopt technology but do not have the capacity, of CIOs, what would you tell them? How can they also tap onto these opportunities? Wambui, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. And it's just quite interesting to listen to my panelist colleagues. Very insightful. Just go to the heart of every organization. Every organization lives to enhance the experience of their customer, because the customer is at the heart of why they do exist. And what the pandemic forced us to do is to actually change and adapt our business processes in terms of vision, because the customer circumstances changed and the behavior of the customer also changed. So Intrasoft, for example, at the heart of our solutions is actually the customer. Whether we are giving a solution to a core banking solution to a SACCO or a bank, or we are deploying a social security solution for the government. The customer journeys did change. And so what the CIOs then need to do is to be at the forefront of driving this adoption of process digitization. It's very, very important. But one of the other things I learned, even from this pandemic, is it has actually shown us that working from home is doable. And if we apply that well, we could enhance, this elusive work-life balance that many of us, keep talking about. But my final thoughts, my closing thoughts would be as follows. As the CIOs are embracing these new technological advances and so on, they shouldn't do this, quickly in terms of without a plan, because the pitfalls are very many. So it's critical to have a well-articulated strategy in order to avoid these pitfalls, Just ensure the basics are there. Security is very, very important. Ensure that you work with a security expert. Number two is, influence the organization culture, from a CIO point of view, because if the organization culture is still the old culture where decision-making is top-down, you will also not be able to achieve your mandate as a CIO. So instead of looking at it just from an IT point of view, how can the CIO influence decision-making, across the entire organization?
Thank you so much, Wambui.
Able to drive the agenda.
Thank you so much. We are really pressed out of time, and I want us to, to just get the last comments from all of the panelists. So please, let's just make it a bit shorter as you bring down your key closing remarks. Robert, Peter, and Imran, please, let's try and have it within 1 minute. If anybody was to tweet about your session today, what is the last closing remark to them? Robert, please.
Keith, thank you. I want just to say two things. Number one, COVID coming has really changed the way our members operate, the way we operate ourselves. I remember we were the first circle to do an online ADM, where we got all our members on and, elected officials and something like that. Okay. Now people benchmark with us.
I'll just want
Yes.
you to leave it at that point. We're really pressed out of time. And to allow just the other panelists, please just allow us to move to the next panelist. Peter and Imran, make it short. We have less than a minute. Let's close this on time.
For me, I will just say two things. One, as a CIO who is out there, kindly adopt agile technologies so that you can be able to adapt to this dynamic environment. Lastly, have digital enabled workflows. That means you will not be able to disrupt your processes as much. That's it for me. Back to you, Keith.
Thank you so much, Peter. Last and not least, Imran, your powerful closing.
Thank you. So for me, I'd say digital innovation is to where we're going as a global economy. However, as a business leader, your priority should be how secure is your digital platform, because that's where your brand is going to reside. That's where your customers are going to be doing business with you, and you'll be having your upstream and downstream providers connecting back to you on your digital platforms. There is no stopping digital innovation now. It's here. It's moving. Everyone's got to adopt it. Small, medium, large enterprises. SOHO, small office, home office. But do please keep in mind that when you adopt digital transformation, cybersecurity is extremely critical to your success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Viewers, you've heard it. Be agile, adopt, strategize, plan, and have security by designs. We have not had enough time, but we can have this conversation keep going on, and we are glad to have very amazing panelists who've been able to help us devour this subject, and thank you very much. My name remains Keith Andere, and I have been your moderator, and looking forward to future and engaging sessions during this CIO100. Thank you very much. And thank you to the panelists. You did amazing. Thanks to you.